everyone, Artie Tambarambaa, also known as Tammy Porter. Thanks for stopping by my YouTube channel again. I'll take you through this art journal page we're going to create with Art by Marlene products. So I've used the Golden Oldie quotes, I've used the Hexagon stars stencil, which is quite new, and this cut and paste block, which is also new. I've used the amazing extra large paper elements pad, and I will list all of these codes in the description. The new A4 art journal. I've used this, which is my visual diary that I create, and I use that as a jumping off point. Some craft tape, some of the markers, of course the sticky glue, and then some paints. So I've got Lace, Mermaid, Smurf and Police in the blues, and then I've got Ho Ho Ho, Kissy, and Punk and Royal. And I actually think I used Ballet as well. I just forgot to put that in that little part of the video. Okay, so let's get started. So today I actually just felt like purely playing. I have actually recently had some surgery, and I am doing some convalescing and haven't really been able to create for a couple of weeks. So I've had some videos scheduled ahead of time, but it's time to get another one done. And I'm not really, you know how it is after, it's sometimes not easy to get back into the process. So I just thought I'd play around a bit today. So this is my inspiration. So that's my visual diary where I document life around here. And what often happens is, because I'm not precious about it, I use those pads of Marlene's, those little books, and they have quite thin paper. So because I'm not worried about the end process and the paper, and I just these pages become little experiments that often then come into my bigger artwork and my videos. So that's what today's all about. So I've got it there as a reference point because I recently used some of Marlene's paper and then extended it out. So a lot of those flowers are just small sections of flowers, but I've extended them out myself with paint. So I thought I'm just going to have a go at painting some flowers. But what was my jumping off point, and you've probably seen that while I've been talking away, I saw the eggs that are in the extra large journal, the die cut paper pad, and I have never used them as eggs, and they've got some gorgeous little watercolour sort of motley spotty centres, and they're super cute, but I haven't used them, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to turn them into circles and use them as the centre of my flowers as my jumping off point. So that's what I did. I popped a few out, as you can see here, and I just cut them into little circles, and these are the starting point for this, I guess, painting. Okay, a bit of a play. So I've come in with I've masked off the edges, the border, with the craft tape. I really love when you lift that up and you get that lovely white border. So I thought I would do that. I haven't done that for a while. And really, to start, I just drew around the larger. I knew I wanted one really big flower, but I knew I wanted it coming off the page. So I drew around that circle of that larger one, and then extended it out. Now you'll notice I began extending it out. I think I've got fuchsia and a bit of ballet when I extend it out. And I started with petals, which you can still see them, but I wasn't loving having to come back in and fill in the gaps in between. So I decided just to, make it more like a big daisy, I guess, and extend the paint the whole way around. So I did that with that first one, and that was my first placement. And then I didn't bother drawing around the other circles. I actually just kind of eyeballed it, thought, yep, I want one there. And then for the next one, I used Azure and Mermaid to do the flower, and then I just continued on. And I've decided I also needed some little small ones in between, and at this stage these are pink, but they do end up becoming red. So I've left the whole process in so you could see kind of exactly how I've done this. The first layer is, it's just a layer, so it doesn't have to look amazing. It's just getting some paint down. But this is when I start to create some depth. So then I've come in with some other colours. I think on the Azure I use some Smurf, but I also mix it with a little bit of white, just so that you get sort of layers of depth. You can see there's a little bit darker underneath peeking through, and it just helps to create that illusion of, instead of a flat flower, actually a living flower. Although these aren't living, they're quite bright compared to lots of flowers, but they're my kind of flowers. So, and of course I have used Art by Marlene as the inspiration, sitting there next to me. So I've come in with, on the pink ones, I came in with purple, and it was the royal colour, and I mixed it with a little bit of white, and I'm just kind of doing feathery strokes just to build up that colour, and I'm keeping it darker towards the centre. And I did the same with the blue. I've used the darker blue in the centre. So this bit's it is a bit fun. It's just playing and getting those layers down, and you kind of gradually watch it come together. So at this point I decided to add in some of the markers. I wasn't happy with some of my paint brush marks, and so I just thought I'm going to cover them up a little bit with some of the markers. So I used the purple, and I love how these markers of Marlene's have the dark on one end and the light on the other, so it's really great for creating that depth. So, you know, I'm using the darker end of the markers towards the center and the lighter as I go out. And it's at this point that I decide that the red is needed for those little flowers. I don't usually use red, but I just needed a little bit of contrast because I had lots of pinks, purples and blues, and just felt like I needed a little pop of colour. So I've done those red, and again, now I've come in with this paintbrush, and this paintbrush is actually just water. So I'm just blending those marker. I'm adding a bit of water to where I've added the marker pens, and it just helps them to blend through. And I just keep faffing. So this is a bit more depth in that purple of that one, and then I just try out the circles. And at this stage I wasn't loving it. I was like, oh, I don't know if the yellow and the orangey red one goes with the pink and purple. Oh, but I was like, look, you're this far in, just keep playing, just keep going and see what happens. And you will see in the end I love it and it all comes together. But there's always those moments where you're like, where is this going? And I think that's really important when you're arting, to remember that it always goes through an ugly stage. I've talked about this lots before in my probably earlier videos. When you're at the ugly stage where you think, oh my God, I hate it, I want to throw it in the bin, keep going, because the magic is just around the corner. You are so close. So I was ignoring that voice in my head that was like, the centres look bad, they don't suit the colours, you've done it all wrong. I just threw them off and thought, I'm just going to keep going. And so by keeping on going, I used a bit of Night, which is a deep navy blue, and I began adding that to the gaps between the flowers and to the bottom of the flowers, and I've just extended that out. So I want that real dark colour up underneath the flowers, and then I want it to get lighter as it comes down. So I just simply mixed the Night with some gesso, white gesso, to bring it down as well. And now I want to come in and really liven that up. So this stencil, the Hexagon Stars, is a new one. And what I've done is I've added Royal, which is a really deep purple, and I've added that towards just underneath the flowers, so towards the top of this area that I'm working on. And then I've wiped it off, put the stencil down, so that's reductive stenciling, and wiped it off, and you get left with some of that purple that's coming down. So I then used Punk, so I've gone with a deep purple at the top, then a mid purple. So I just kind of trying to join up, and you can see I don't bring it all the way down. I think the secret is, well, one of my secrets is not to stencil everything, because you do need patches of little blank bits of colour so that the eye draws into that stenciling. So you'll see I've left the bottom part of the page without too much stenciling, and I've come back in once I've done my stenciling with some more of that royal paint and just added little solid colour patches of colour here and there, and that just helps create that sort of real depth and brings those flowers popping forward off of that sort of shadowy kind of background. So then I did my mark making, which I do on most of my work, but I came in with just a little bit of punk and a little bit of blue, which is the Smurf. And I didn't, again, don't fill the whole area, just do little patches, because I think you want that illusion of dark and light. So I don't know if I'm explaining this very well, but hopefully it helps you. Okay, so now I put the centers back on, and still not loving it, but I think once the background was done I was a little bit happier, and I'm thinking, right, I've got to make this work. I've got to somehow merge these into the flowers. So again, began with the markers and just drawing some sort of scribbly circles around them, and I didn't mind that, so I'm just continuing with that. And then on the little flowers in the red that I've just painted on myself, I just add the gold marker for the centre and a little bit of black. And I'm kind of just copying what Marlene's done in hers, you know, using that as my inspiration. Okay, and then time to work on the blue flowers, so I come in with the dark marker, which is the dark blue, and I'm just sort of adding it with dash lines, but then blending it with my finger as well. So you'll see I'm doing it now to the large pink one. I'm coming in with that gorgeous deep blue, which is gorgeous, love that, and just wiping it up a little bit in parts and spreading it with my finger and sort of blending it in. And I'm starting to go, okay, this is okay. This is where I'm a little bit happier at this point. And then I'm just using some white of the marker to add a few little dots. I guess there's some dots in the center of the flowers, so I just thought I'd emulate that, and a few little highlights as well, using the white. So just trying to make those petals look like they're a little bit rounded, so concentrating those highlight parts towards the outer part. And then I'm just adding extra bit of red to the centers of the larger ones, and then I'm just adding a little bit of black. Now I didn't want to add too much black to this because I've kind of mainly used navies and purple, but I do add just a little bit to give a little bit of interest and depth to those centers. I'm mainly concentrating it around the centers of the flowers, trying to create that illusion of, you know, the flower being deeper in those areas and then the petals coming upwards. That's kind of what I'm trying to do. So I think I just fluff around here for a while, so I might just go quiet and let you watch this bit, and I'll come back when I get to the next stage. Okay, we're at the next stage already. I didn't do as much as I thought. I think I've talked a lot in this video, so thanks for bearing with me. So now I've got my Stabilo All pencil, and I just want to deepen up that shadow underneath those flowers and really pop those flowers forward. So I've just got my Stabilo All, which is a black water-soluble pencil, and just going along the edges. And I'm just bringing that shadow down in some areas, a little bit further down in some areas than others, again to create that dark and light and that, you know, sort of a natural, there's not an exact line around everything, you know, it depends where the sun is, and so, you know, you want sort of a dappled shadow, I guess, is what I'm trying to do. So, but I really like how the shadowing really makes those flowers pop forward. Oh, look, I've gone back to doing more faffing. All right, so I will just let you watch this part. So now I'm heating up the edges because it's time to do the big reveal. And I love this bit. I love the way that white border just is so crisp. And so heating up your craft tape will prevent it from tearing your paper. It sometimes does still a little bit, but it comes up much easier. And then I trimmed off just that center flower on the right. I just trimmed off the circle so that it sat flush with the border. So at this point I decide, oh, I think I need some leaves. Now this video was filmed over a whole day. I had to keep having little breaks and rests. So you can see that it's actually quite dark now. It's kind of towards the end of the day, and it's not as much light coming into my studio as there was earlier. So hopefully you can still see what I'm doing. But basically out of the cut and paste block, I did a page, I think it was the last video I did, and it was of the tulip, the red tulip with the purple and blue background. So this is actually the green left over from that, where I cut the tulip from, and I thought, oh, I'll just cut some leaf shapes out of that. So that's what I've done. I've just hand cut some leaf shapes, added them onto the page in a couple of areas, and I'm just adding some markers to give them a bit of oomph and outlining them with black pen. And then I do come back in with that Stabilo oil and ensure that I've included the leaves in that shadowing. And I must let you know too that how I put my videos, how I film my videos, haven't got a very good setup here, so I'm going to try and treat myself to a new setup. So you'll see it keeps slipping, and every now and then I'm off camera. So apologies for that this time, and hopefully I can find something that works better for me in the future, and I don't have to keep adjusting my camera because it's slipping. So I did come in with a tiny bit more smurf into my mark making, just for a little bit more of a pop. And then I went through the quotes and I found a quote, and this quote says, "Putting emotion into your artwork is what makes a picture a painting." And I thought, oh, that suits this perfectly, because this really was just me playing with paint and kind of creating my own picture. So I've left you with lots of close-ups, and hopefully you can see a bit more of the detail. And thanks so much. This was another longie today, but thanks for sticking with me. And hopefully I'll be back again soon and get my mojo back on and get back into it. Thanks everyone. Bye.